Disappointment, lackluster, boring. There are many ways to define something as the worst. For me, I would rather watch a train wreck of a season of Survivor than a boring one, even though that train wreck would technically be the worst. Now today we're looking at some of the worst final tribal immunity challenges in Survivor history, whether they are disappointing, lackluster, boring, or possibly end with a devastating loss to a fan favorite character. If they are bad, they are making this list. This video was made possible by the patrons on my Patreon, and every month they vote on what videos I should make, like this one. Consider joining them to get videos early and to pick what videos I make. Now let's get our heads into a bag of garbage with these terrible final immunity challenges. To be clear, this list is focused exclusively on the final immunity challenges and its result. It is not a commentary on the season as a whole, as a great season can have a disappointing final immunity challenge and vice versa. But a bad final immunity challenge can be the result of a bad season that led up to that point, or it could sour the end of a great season. And a spoiler warning before we begin, every single final immunity challenge talked about here may be spoiling the winner of that season. So if you don't want to be potentially spoiled on a season, I recommend not watching this video yet. So with that, number 8. Season 23 Survivor South Pacific finds itself in a strange situation. Not only has it brought back fan favorites Ozzy and Coach, but it also has the strange Redemption Island twist where despite the fact that Ozzy has already been voted out of this game twice and his tribe is completely decimated, he finds himself still in the game in the underdog position at the final 4 immunity challenge. It is a challenge with multiple obstacles that all lead to puzzle pieces. Solve the puzzle, win immunity. It's pretty simple. Now, despite Coach returning back to the season and being beloved by some and hated by many, by the time we reach this challenge this season, I think he has disappointed even his most hardcore fans with how he has played and acted during South Pacific. Whereas the other contenders are Sophie, who we barely know, and Albert, who has come across like an annoying know-it-all. Despite some villainous moments from earlier this season, I think most of the general audience here would be pushing all their chips in on Ozzy. He is coming into this season with 2 seasons of goodwill before it, and he is the underdog. So if Ozzy wins this challenge, he wins the season. He's just that beloved. So what happens?
Ozzy's still fighting. Wins final immunity!
We see Sophie, someone the general audience barely knows or cares about, winning final immunity and putting the final nail in Ozzy's game. And in case you're wondering, yes, he does set a new Survivor record of being voted out 3 times in one season. Number 7. Oh boy, here is a unique situation that season 29 San Juan del Sur finds itself in. Let's set this up properly, shall we? Now, normally if you get injured in Survivor bad enough, others will either vote you out of the game or medical will just take you out of the game by force. But in this unique case, Missy has injured her ankle so badly in a previous reward challenge that the doctor said, actually, we don't know how bad it is. We need to get you an x-ray. But since the injury is not life-threatening, we can't force you out of the game. So unless you want to quit, then you can stay. So Missy does just that. She stays, and she is now on crutches. And this final immunity challenge really only has 3 contenders because of that: Natalie, Keith, and Jacqueline.
So Missy, obvious question. Looking at the size of this challenge, I don't see any way you can participate given the shape you're in.
Yeah, pretty sure it's not gonna happen.
At this point, the general audience is rooting for Keith or Natalie. Now, the challenge itself is not bad. In fact, it's very similar to what we just talked about in South Pacific. Basically, the players need to go through some obstacles, get bags of puzzle pieces, and make a puzzle that will help them open a combination lock. So the challenge occurs with one of its 4 contenders sitting on a bench, and the nail in the coffin on this challenge comes with how it ends.
Does she have it? Yes! Jacqueline wins! Individual immunity, guaranteed a spot in the final 3!
A contestant is missing from the challenge, and then the player who the fans care the least about wins this final immunity. Despite how the season ends, this just marks this as one of the worst final immunity challenges. Number 6. Season 5, Survivor Thailand sure had production ramping up their game from what they had done in the previous 4 seasons. Jeff is finally narrating challenges. The challenges themselves are making for better television than they did before. It's just a shame that the cast kind of sucks. Now, the challenge challenge itself looks incredible, is unique, and on paper had to be exciting to think about. The reality though, it is in a brutally hot cave which just affects everything. Jeff even says specifically it is 105 degrees and there is no air flowing in and out. It's just 105 degrees in a cave. And I am sure it didn't help that they had to fill the whole cave with fire so there'd be enough light to even shoot what they're doing here. The contestants are required to squat in this awkward position while keeping pieces of gold between their fingers. Any gold drops and they lose. It's very symbolic, and on paper, I totally get why this is a great challenge. It is designed to be an endurance challenge that could last for hours given the right players.
Don't let the money slip through your fingers. There are 18 coins in front of you, 6 for each of you, 3 for your left hand, 3 for your right. You'll put the coins between your fingers and keep them there. You will then go into a traditional Thai stance called the Khan, and you will stand in this position with the coins between your fingers for the duration of the challenge. The frames behind you will force you to stay in place. It will be uncomfortable. It will grow to be painful, especially for your legs. You will want to quit. It's a test of your willpower. And the longer you last, the more difficult it becomes to achieve your goal. Slowly, those coins will begin to fall through your fingers. When all 6 of your coins have fallen through your fingers into the walk below, you're out of the game.
This sounds incredibly cool, and the potential for this challenge is through the roof. Unfortunately, disappointment sets in when you realize that only one person can really win this challenge. Ryan Heidick is in great physical condition, has won many challenges before this one, and is only 34 years old. His competition is Clay, a 46-year-old man who is not in great shape, and we have seen be inherently lazy on the show all season, with other people getting annoyed with how lazy he is. And Jan, a 53-year-old teacher who is in okay shape for her age and tends to cry about a lot of things. But what makes this even better and sucks more air out of this challenge, Ryan has a final 2 with both of them. So really the result of this challenge does not matter. When the challenge actually happens, it only takes 2.5 minutes of the episode despite being an endurance challenge. But you may be asking, how did it last so little time in the show? Because the actual challenge only lasts 12 minutes and 15 seconds, and they really only have like 2, 3, maybe 4 camera angles at most covering this challenge. So when the winner wins this challenge, here's how they react to this epic victory, this thing that gets them to the finals and basically guarantees them $1 million.
Okay, everyone going? Yeah. Cheers, bro. Good job, guys.
An endurance challenge that lasts 12 minutes and a winner that has almost no emotion about this victory. Yeah, that sounds about on par with this season. Number 5. Season 8 Survivor All-Stars suffers from a lot of what the previous season on this list suffers from too. A predictable boot order, no fan favorites making it to final immunity, but a love story has blossomed between the villainous Boston Rob and Amber that has them being the tightest duo ever in Survivor history. So with them and Jenna Lewis in the final 3, the player that no one has ever considered a threat and the general audience doesn't care for, they all go to final immunity together. The result seems inevitable before it ever begins, which is a shame since Survivor brings back the hand on a hard idol challenge made infamous in its first season Borneo, which they have also brought back for seasons 3 and 4, and it worked out every time. All you have to do is keep your hand on the idol and don't take your feet off of the pillars. If your other hand touches the idol or your feet leave those pillars, you lose.
Jenna, you lifted your foot.
Oh boy, the only person who could have even slightly disrupted this predictable boot order is out first, and now it's obvious what's going to be happening for the rest of the finale. There's no question. Why even bother finishing the challenge? Why not just quit now? Well, actually, Amber convinces Boston Rob to do so, but it takes Jeff Probst questioning his man crush to force him into staying so this challenge can pretend like it matters anymore.
You've had it 1,000,000 times.
Okay. Wait. Catch me up. What's going down? You're gonna give her immunity and step off?
No, we talked about if we were +2, would one of us step down? Briefly, but we did.
I find it funny that Rob forgot their conversation like most men do. I know I have done this before. But that is all the value this challenge has, as it pretends it wants to have stakes and be epic, but it just isn't, which isn't helped when it ends like a wet fart.
Yeah.
You can reach.
Guys, I can only reach down. I can only...
Amber, you're out. Just like that, Boston Rob. You have final immunity.
What could have been a great challenge, and indeed has been in past seasons, carried almost no weight due to how the game had played out before it and what it caused afterwards. Number 4. Season 6, Survivor the Amazon is now our third old school season in a row, and unlike the past two, the challenge design is a big factor here on top of the results. So the final 3 are Jenna Maraska, Matthew Von Ertfelder, and Rob Sesternino. General audiences may want Rob gone and Matt to win, whereas if you watch nowadays, you probably are rooting for Rob based on his gameplay and his fun attitude this season. Either way, prepare your butts for disappointment. At Tribal Council, each castaway has to stand on a wooden perch that is not tailored to the size of their feet and hold their headdress above their head. Already there's a flaw in the challenge since the block they're bouncing on favors Jenna and her smaller feet, but the first silver bullet to this vampire of a challenge is how Matthew drops pretty early into it.
Oh, Matthew, you're out.
Who knew the guy with the largest feet would have the biggest problem? I didn't see that one coming. For an endurance challenge, this lasts even less time than the one in Thailand based on the fact that the show never gives us an elapsed time, which it loves to do when it can. Ultimately, the predictable result that anyone could have seen coming when the challenge is explained happens as Jenna wins.
Rob is out. Jenna, take a step down. You have the most important immunity.
Had Rob or Matt won, it is very likely they take each other to the end of the game, so Jenna winning this challenge and ultimately the season is the result that neither the general audience or us modern day fans wanted. Fun. Number 3. Oh boy, here's a can of worms, let's open it. Season 25 Survivor Philippines would have been lower on this list had some things outside of the game not occurred, but they did, so here we are. The challenge itself is not the problem at all. In fact, I like it more than most. In it, you have to bounce a ball on a wooden cylinder with 2 handles. The cylinder gets longer as the game progresses, and if the ball ever falls off, you're done. Simple yet intense. So here are the contenders ranked from least favorite to most as seen by general audiences when this aired. Lisa Welchel started the season as a mopey crybaby and evolved into a cutthroat player once her brother saw her at the family visit. Next is Mike Skupin, who played on season 2 but was medevaced when he fell into the fire at camp and is now getting a second shot. Then you have Denise Stapley, a woman who came from the infamous Matsing tribe and has survived every single tribal council in the game. Then finally is the fan favorite Malcolm Freeberg. No question, he is the front runner to win the game and our hearts. He even has an advantage where if he drops the ball once, he gets a second chance. No one else has this. Our hopes as fans are at an all-time high. He is a challenge beast and is one immunity from winning the whole season. So the challenge begins, and after only extending the wooden cylinder once,
Malcolm drops his ball. He is not out of the challenge. He has a second shot.
no way, he dropped way too soon, but he has a second chance. So with that second chance, the intensity is ramped back up until...
Just like that, Malcolm is out of this challenge. No shot at immunity.
he drops again. And this is a shocking twist, but not the good kind. But all is not lost. If Denise wins, then she is likely to take Malcolm with her to the end. They have been thick as thieves all season, but not in a Boston Rob and Amber kind of way. But they have been really close. So...
30 seconds. And out of nowhere, Denise drops her ball.
And that doesn't happen too long after Malcolm drops either. Frankly, neither Mike or Lisa will take Malcolm to the end, so he is done. Whoever wins almost doesn't matter as they are guaranteed to take each other, so what happens?
Lisa drops her ball. Skupin wins final immunity.
Mike Skupin wins, which at the time of this airing doesn't seem too bad. The guy who fell in the fire all the way back in season 2 got some redemption. What a cool story arc. I mean, it was kind of cool until after the show aired and then Mike got in trouble with the law for 20 license suspensions in 14 years, got busted for a Ponzi scheme that he made, and was found guilty of child pornography charges. Yeah, that kind of puts a massive damper on his win here and watching this final immunity challenge now. So, we're just gonna move on. Number 2. Here is what many of you said was a massive injustice when I asked for some of the worst final immunity challenges here on YouTube. Season 12, Exile Island features a challenge that is kind of similar to Season 6's in that it completely favors one type of player. Typically an immunity challenge, especially the final one, should give everyone a fair shot, but Exile Islands is not fair in the least. Essentially, the players need to bounce on floating platforms. Unlike in Season 7, which I believe is the best way of doing this specific challenge, every 15 minutes they have to move to a smaller platform until they get to one that I'm not sure anyone could balance on, given that they can only use their feet and no hands. If you see the problem already, then you know where this is headed, like in Season 6, but if not, then you will soon find out. At this point, the fan favorite is the underdog Terry, who had to win every single individual immunity challenge up until the final 4, and then his super idol netted him a spot in the final 3. He is the underdog. All he needs to do to win this season likely is just to win this challenge. Now Aris has been the yang to Terry's yin, so rooting for him is also a viable option for most fans watching this season. Everyone is fine on the first platform, but as soon as everyone moves to the second platform, it causes some more difficulty, but not too much. However, the move to the third platform is the real game changer, and then the madness ensues, which results in...
Hang on. The first person out of this challenge.
As you might have now realized, the platforms are not adjusted to anyone's weight or size. Terry standing on the platform has it covered in water, while someone smaller and lighter like Danielle has no issues. Aris, a balancing expert of sorts, even struggles a little bit, but speaking of Aris...
Aris is out of the challenge. Danielle wins immunity.
Since Terry is out, there's no reason to fight, so he just falls in and lets Danielle win. It is a lackluster final immunity challenge that takes a lot of the air out of the end of the season. This would have been perfectly fine for a reward challenge, but for something as big as the final immunity, it really hurts. Honorable mention. Season 32 Survivor Go Wrong is the honorable mention for one reason and one reason alone. The final immunity challenge happens so early in the finale and was not clearly planned to be the final immunity challenge. What we actually see as the final challenge in this season is a throwaway reward challenge to remove a juror. It ultimately does not affect who wins this game, and I don't blame production at all. It makes sense that they had to do something like this given all the medical evacuations this season and what they had planned for television. But when this extra challenge plus the subsequent tribal to vote out a juror takes up 23 minutes of the finale, you can't help but feel like we're just spinning our wheels to get to what we really want to do, which is final tribal council and seeing who wins it all. Though on the plus side,
Aubrey loses everything. Michelle wins individual reward.
Number 1. Season 11 Survival. So what do you think about these final immunity challenges? Is there one I missed? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and I want to give an even bigger thanks to the patrons as they made this video happen, and it was made at their request. Once again, thanks for watching.